Hello and welcome back to another lecture. My name is Mrs. Presley and we will be talking about professional communication techniques for patients. So we're going to get started. So right now I want you to just focus on what I'm saying. And so just relax, close your eyes, and just listen. As a healthcare professional, you will communicate with patients, their family members, and friends. Other members of the healthcare team, your superiors, such as the office manager and physicians, and other outside professionals, such as members of the hospital staff, pharmacy, and ancillary facilities. So when you hear that, that's communication that will transpire throughout your time in the field. So you have an opportunity to influence and provide a lot of information. And your communication is key in these outside as well as inside people to understand what you are trying to communicate to them. So this is so important. That's why I wanted you just to listen and take in all the people that you're going to have communication with. So now we're going to talk about some techniques. Now your book lists these are all listed in your book, but I want to bring them to life. I want you to think about situations that could arise with a special needs person, or these different things that we will be discussing as we continue this lecture. So, patients with special needs. So we never want to assume that the person with a disability needs help. So instead, we want to, see if, hey, do you need my assistance? Can I do anything for you? Or you ask it in a way that doesn't feel like you are saying, you need my help. You have to have my help. You want to allow them to ask you if they need help. Because quite often people don't like, if they do have some special need, oftentimes they do not want anyone to feel sorry for them. And so those are things that we really have to keep in mind as we try to assist our patients. Special needs, it is, I'm going to share, I remember we had a patient, she was in a wheelchair, and it was just, she couldn't speak, and she was such the life of the party, so to speak, because she, even though she couldn't speak, she mumbled, she would mumble, or you could tell her excitement. So, as I was speaking with her, I could see that she was so excited because I was telling her about something she had on. I think she had on like a cute little shirt, and I was just commenting, and I was like, oh, that's such a nice shirt, and just trying to talk to her in that manner, and I could see that she was so excited and so glad that I was even speaking to her, and or interested in her, I should say. And she thought that was, I could see how she was getting so excited. And so, we have to think about these things as we encounter, people with special needs. Think about how you would feel if it was your family member. And you go that extra mile sometimes. It doesn't take much to go that extra mile. It didn't take much for me just to comment on her shirt. It wasn't a lot. But I felt like I needed to do something so that she would feel better. And I think it helped her. Of course, her mom was with her, and her mom also appreciated that as well. And remember, we talked about how family members will also be there to support their family members. And of course, she had to be there to support her child. And she was very appreciative of me just taking the time to kind of joke with her daughter. And sometimes that's what we have to do with our patients. So now we're going to look at hearing impaired patients. I don't know if you recall, I talked about a patient when I went for an interview, and I noticed that the patient, because this is such a great example, I want to share it again. The patient had one of the little buzzers that like you receive when you go to a restaurant. So the patient had that buzzer, and they had hearing, they were deaf, and so they knew when it was their turn because it lit up, so they knew that it was their turn. So things like this, little simple things that you can think of, because I thought, genius, whoever thought of that idea for patients that could not hear is such a welcome to, especially for those patients that can't hear. I'm sure they felt so much better, and it's such an easy thing to do. You just note on the chart that the patient is deaf, or whatever it is. You note that on the chart so that you are aware of that, and you're mindful of what it is that that patient may need. So it's always so important to always think about things like that, simple things, because we have many patients that have different needs. So if we have the ability to make a difference any way, any minute way, then we should do it. We should at least try. So I thought that was such a great example that I've seen, in a clinic where they, would give the patient the little buzzer so that it would light up, and they knew that it was time for them to come back. And I just, and I actually got to see the buzzer go off, and the patient, went to, they got up and went back. So I know it works, of course, but this is a good idea for you to be thinking about, because who knows? You could be the voice for somebody. I always say, sometimes we have to be the voice for the voiceless. And this could be your opportunity to make a difference if they don't have something in place to assist people that are deaf. This could be something that you could suggest. So keep that in mind as you move into your career. So even visually, visually impaired people, they always say if you are lacking in any one of your senses, that the other ones are heightened. So this is just a fact. That's just the way it typically is. So people that are visually impaired, I always think anytime you have a person who has any kind of deficiency, or something they lack, it's always something that they are either they do much better at in another area, or same with your senses. So, keep that in mind. So if somebody doesn't see well, they are visually impaired. And there's a big difference in somebody that is visually impaired, from birth, versus somebody that lost their sight over time. And so we want to also, think about that too, with your patient. Be aware of that. Those are things that you can learn early on, just, notes in the chart that you can bring to life. And I like these examples in the book, and I say I wanted to bring it to life so that you could think about, how you would treat a person that is visually impaired. How would you try to make sure that they were comfortable in their own skin. You have to allow people to kind of do their own thing, their own way, but you want to be there to assist. Does that make sense? So it's not that you're not trying to help them, but you're allowing them to do what they can before you step in and start to assist. You want to allow them that. I think that's really the key as we think about our patients and their needs. It's so important that we meet people where they are so that we can, recognize that they need assistance, but allow them to let us know how much assistance they need. So I hope you're getting this, because I wanted to, even though these are in the book, I wanted to bring them to life so that you truly understand how important your role is as you do all this communicating with people. It is so vital that our communication meet the needs of each individual, wherever they may be. Remember at the beginning when I read that and I wanted you to listen? So remember, not only do we have an obligation to our patients, but we have an obligation to our co-workers and those that we, communicate with outside of the facility. So we have a lot of communication that goes on, and we want to be as effective as we possibly can and meet the needs of our patients as well as any other staff. So, impaired level of understanding. Individuals who are developmentally disabled, emotionally disturbed, have suffered acquired or traumatic brain injury. So we got to think about these type of injuries. These people that come into our facility, we got to make sure we work very closely with them to understand what their limitations are, what it is they can and cannot do, and then we assist them in such a manner that is helpful to them versus hindering to them. And we have to be, thoughtful of that. It takes some thought, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Does that make sense? So if we have a patient and we don't truly understand what their needs are, how can we assist them? So that's when, I said, if you don't understand something, if you don't know something, ask questions. This is one of those key areas where you can ask questions, because you want to treat everybody with the same respect. That goes without saying. So you treat your patients with this profound respect, no matter what their issue is. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, they are a human being, and if they're our patient, we want them to feel like they are receiving the best possible care that we can provide. And our communication should be exemplary in these areas. We should show our patients how much we truly appreciate them even choosing our facility to come to. Okay, so keep that in mind. You know, these are the communication seems like, it's not a big deal. It truly is, because it can make the difference in an office in patients coming back. And, you know, we want them to return. We don't want them to go away feeling like, I'm never going to that office again. And a lot of times it has to do with the staff or the physician, whoever that's in that office. It often happens, people feel this way because of that very reason, because of the care they received. So we kind of talked about anxious patients before. We talked about, you know, anxious and angry patients, because you know, that's another key element to, you know, de-escalating things. If the patient comes in and they're upset, we don't want to become upset, and we want to de-escalate that. I remember we had a patient that was so upset because their surgery got canceled because they didn't pay their they hadn't paid their deductible, so the insurance wasn't going to pay. Their deductible hadn't been met, and so the patient came in, and she came into the office, and she was so upset. And then her husband followed. He came in, and he was upset too, saying, why didn't she get her surgery? And so it was such a big ordeal, but we had to remain calm, and we actually had to call for security to come in, because it escalated to that level. And so instead of, you know, us getting upset and, you know, making it worse than it, could have been, we remained calm, and we got help, and they were escorted out. But had we got upset with the way they were speaking to us, it really could have caused a lot of problems. And so we didn't want to do that. We wanted to try to, you know, ensure the patient that it wasn't on our behalf. You know, we're only following if the insurance is saying they're not going to pay, then, you know, you have to follow up with your insurance to see, you know, what needs to happen. But that's one of those situations where you have to still remain calm. And so that's why I'm saying I like to bring these things to life. I want you to think about things that could happen. And trust me, patients are not going to always come in and be so jolly and excited to be there. Sometimes they may come in and they could be upset. And, you know, it could very well be not even something that you did. It could be something else going on with that patient. And so that's why we can't allow their anger to be transposed onto us, so that we become anger in this situation. So we have to really kind of step away and remember to remain professional. And if you need help, you call call for help. So like I said, we called security because the patient wasn't leaving and they were being very belligerent and they were not happy with what we were saying. So what we were saying was not satisfying to them. But I will say that after they were escorted out and a few days later, they did come back and they apologized. So a lot of times, like I said, the wife was frustrated because she wanted to have the surgery. So quite naturally, the husband was upset too because that's his wife. But they just went about it in the wrong manner. But, it was good that they came back and they did apologize. But at the time, it was not, it was, it was something that was not a pleasant atmosphere. And so we definitely had to call because we didn't know what could transpire from that. So that's what you have to do too. And just keep in mind to always, put your professional face on and leave it. Don't try to remove it and go to their level. You want to always remain professional. So speech impaired, it can be a medical condition, and so we just, it could be, a person that's had a stroke. And I remember I went to one of a young lady that I knew. She had a stroke, and she was an older lady, and she was, she was such a happy person, and so she was still happy even after the stroke, but it was just difficult for her to get things out. And so it's like you were like waiting for her to complete. But you got to be careful because you don't want people to be offended where it's like they feel like, they're trying to say something to you and you're holding, it's like you were kind of being a little disrespectful in a sense because it's like, yeah, so avoid that. You don't want that behavior. You want to just be patient and know that they're trying to get it out. So we talked about the angry patient. So, you always want to, be mindful of them and, make sure that, you try to apologize for whatever it is and you try to make the situation better. So thank you once again. I hope I kind of brought some of these things to light that were in your reading because it can very well happen. Patients do come in and they aren't happy, and we do have patients that are impaired, but we want to ensure no matter how you come into that office, we are prepared to provide you with the best quality care that we possibly can. So thank you again for listening to this lecture, and I will see you in the next one. Alrighty, have a good one. Make sure you complete your work. If you have any questions or concerns, always reach out to your instructor. Thank you.